Welcome to the Tapestry of Life. I am Dr. Pascal Scholes, Professor of Behavioral Health and Human Services and Director of the Office of Collegiate Recovery, Community College of Philadelphia. Today's topic is the Center for Male Engagement. Focusing on African American males, the center provides its members with targeted academic and non-academic supports designed to enhance their skill sets, cultivate a sense of belonging, and build resolve as they pursue their degree. To discuss the topic today, I want to welcome my co-host and colleague Derek Perkins, Director of the program, and our two very special guests, Michael Luna and Hasim Kliet. Well, you know, I've been watching, to get started, I kind of always been interested in watching the development of the Center for Male Engagement. I remember quite a few years when it started, and I could fill in with a statement that one of the big losses that the behavioral health program had that I was running at that time was that we were losing many of the male African American men. The African American women were fine. They stayed around for a real long time and then eventually got their degrees. But it was the men that we had difficulty with. And so I know that that's one of your issues.
Exactly, and that's why why the program actually exists, because when we looked at the data, African American men in particular had the lowest retention rates and academic outcomes in comparison to any other group here on campus. And so as an institution, we said we had to do something better on behalf of particularly African American men. And so it started with a one-year grant. That one-year grant turned into a 5-year grant, and now we're going into another 4 years. So the program now has been in existence for 10 years. Continuing to be designed to make sure that African American men here particularly have the necessary support so they could be successful, and more importantly, be able to kind of take their rightful places in the world.
What I noticed before we talked to two of your kind of students, I've noticed that you have an awful lot of like social activities, and I see buses on Saturday, and, you know, and all kinds of things that kind of enhance the history of growing up in America. That's what it looks like to me.
So I mean, it's very important that our students don't just not recognize that they are still citizens of Philadelphia, but they're citizens of this world, right? And so we will make sure that they have different exposures to other people, other experiences, making sure that they feel comfortable in different spaces. So we go to trips to New York to see Broadway play. We do museums. We do college tours, paintballing, you know, whitewater rafting. They complain about the whitewater rafting and love it every year that we do it. But it's really about them kind of stepping outside of themselves, right? Because, you know, in Philadelphia, it's all about communities, and not a lot of people leave their communities. But we want to make sure that they recognize that who they are, and they're part of this world, and I want them to be exposed to that world.
Now, I assume, again, before we get more detail, I assume that, like, at least I grew up, and I'm sure you grew up in a similar way, that there wasn't a lot of, like, attention to your cultural heritage.
No, not at all.
In the situation that I grew up in.
No, not at all. Not at all. And so I'm originally from Connecticut, and during my particular experience, I was bused, right? And so I was bused from probably 45 minutes away from my home. So most of my particular early education was in these particularly predominantly white institutions where I necessarily didn't see myself reflected or necessarily supported. And so it was always a struggle for me to kind of identify who I am, what support actually looked like in those particular spaces. And so when I had the opportunity to learn about the program, what it did, this is why I was called to do, right? Because I know what it feels like not to feel supported, not to feel affirmed in particular spaces, and want to make sure our students have those particular supports that I didn't have. And so when I came on board, that was my mission, recognizing the parameters of the grant, but more importantly for me, it was like I wanted to make sure that students felt affirmed and welcomed, right? I didn't always feel that, definitely didn't feel comfortable in who I was, and so I wanted to make sure that our students feel that way. And because someone took that opportunity for me, as in terms of mentors, and kind of poured into me and said that I see something in you that you don't necessarily see in yourself, I want to make sure that particularly the Michael Lunas and Hasim Kliet of the world understand that same gift and privilege, and for me to help to cultivate that, and they definitely have to kind of take it off. So that's why we do it.
Well, I don't know, Mike or Hasim, you want to say something? Mike, I've known since he got here practically.
Yes.
I knew him, and I know he'll talk a little bit about it. I've known Mike and early in his when he came here in his recovery, and in many ways, is a perfect example of what we're trying to do.
Absolutely.
Because there was an interaction between your department, your program, and my program,
Yes.
in which he, I think, flourished because of what he got from you, and
right.
what maybe he didn't get from me. I'm not really sure.
It takes a village. It absolutely takes a village, and Mike is definitely represents that. So, and I see it too. Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. Because, when I first transitioned to Community College of Philadelphia, I was early in my recovery. I'm actually coming up on almost 4 years sober of drugs and alcohol now, which transitioning straight from a drug rehab to Community College of Philadelphia was very scary. It was an opportunity to kind of try to figure out how to navigate college or figure out what really college meant. As I obtained my GED when I was about 18, I'm actually now 29 years old, so it could be very scary not knowing the culture of what college can do. And when I transitioned, it was kind of scary not knowing
What's going to happen? You know, it's interesting. I'll have you continue. It's interesting because I'm sure you do the same thing, Derek, as I do. Is that is actually one of the major thrusts of people in early recovery, and I'm sure young men, of people of color, that is a scary transition because when I grew up, it was like, they were like this, like that's where the white people go, like that's what ran through my mind. I said, I don't know, could I make it there? Could I talk their talk? Do I know their language? Do I understand? Am I going to say something that in my neighborhood was okay, but over here is like insulting? I mean, I didn't know. So so that I'm sure when we talk to us, we'll have similar experience.
Sure, and then I, was happy to be sober and find validation in college that I met you and met the program of Office of Collegiate Recovery, which allowed me to start to understand drug and alcohol addiction on a deeper scale, on a deeper level. And from that point, piggybacking off of both of the offices, CME, finding CME as well, and your office gave me the drug and alcohol perspective, and Mr. Perkins, what he stands for and what he does gave me more of the personal retrospect of me.
Your history. Your history.
And starting to understand that place, transitioning in and out of a classroom, but also understanding that, college is more than just a classroom.
Right.
And it started to give me, started to touch up on some places in my life that I never thought that I would be addressing.
Well, our histories are real important, and the problem is if you're from, a culture in which you're not the white whatever you want to use the name for it, what happens is that you actually get told that you're not a part of the reality that's here, and that you got to find your own space. Now, I happen to have grown up, my parents were immigrants, and I remember that we used to go to cultural awareness, you're a nice person, you're a good person, don't believe all that bull, et cetera, et cetera. And because every time you would go to any other place, you would always feel somewhat like you were being, cast aside. I don't know how else to put it. So yes, I think you're right. And recovery is another issue that creates problems. People don't like us, generally. They don't like recovering people because they think, any day now he's going to do something crazy, or something like that. So.
Yeah. And for me, it was really about building trust, right?
Yeah.
And that's central. So Mike became, started coming to the center more and more, and recognizing that you could tell that he wanted to help, but didn't know how to ask for the help, right? How to ask for the support. And I think a lot of it, to be honest, I think because of the stigma around, people with addictions, right? And kind of internalizing that, and not necessarily intentionally alienating people, but I'm only going to allow you to come so close, right? Because I can't feel like I can trust you, particularly in being vulnerable with this information. And for Mike, I just had to let him know that who you were or what the issues that you dealt with were the issues that you dealt with, but that doesn't define who you are, right, presently. Yeah. And for me, it was about building that trust and letting them know that I'm here to support you. It's not about judgment. It's about you beginning now to redefine who you want to be moving forward. And so it didn't happen overnight because
sure, it never does.
It never does, right?
Yeah.
But it's important for us to be consistent, right? And once we became consistent and you saw that I actually cared about him, what the center cares about him, you could just see him letting go and starting to lift up, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time. And so this is why we exist, right?
Yeah, because we fertilize them.
That's what we plant the seed and let it work, let it go, right?
That's how you want to put it. And
Right.
the CME allowed me, in other words, to trust again. And that's what it does when the things that you start to learn starts to work. And as it's working, you build these relationships that normally not being involved, you wouldn't build these relationships.
Right.
Or not understanding that there are opportunities to learn and discover the new you through the activities and the workshops and the trips. And even the people that's employed, our support coaches. We have direct support coaches who are personal with our navigating of us being college students. And those opportunities allow us to redefine every step of the way. Right. And it teaches young black men, young Hispanic American men, young minority, that the world is a big world, and what the world says of us is only opinion. We define our narrative, and we can do it with the support. So what CME is taught is not only here, but it's a world situation. You know, because it teaches us how to go into a situation knowing what we want, but also learning the language to speak about how to get what we deserve. So it's a great opportunity, and I honestly can say without CME, and even CCP and Office of Collegiate Recovery, I don't know where I would be. So
yeah, that's true. I'm sure this resonates and makes sense to you, huh?
Definitely, because the program, it doesn't you trust everyone in the program, but that it doesn't force you to trust everyone. So it's like we being a student, and then on the flip side, starting to work here and becoming a peer coach, I've been helped and I've helped other people. True. And then you create relationships with people that you would have never talked to. Like I started my first semester head on, hood on top of that. I was in the program, but I barely talked to anybody. So I know without the program, I'd just be class, home.
Right.
Like I probably wouldn't even step
not
in the
engaged
library,
in the activities
at all. Yeah. And so it forces you to open up and be around people and interact, and it puts you in all of the right situations you need to grow.
What led you to come to community? Were you drawn by some neighbors or friends or?
No, I was in high school in 11th grade, and I wanted to skip grades. I wanted to skip grades throughout all of high school, and my cyber school wouldn't let me do that, so I dropped out.
Oh, okay.
And then I got my GED after I took way too long to get my GED. So I dropped out in January, and then I didn't take the test until May, June.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't like I took forever to read the books. It was like I opened these books a week ago. I took the test and I passed it.
Sure. Right.
And that procrastination put me on a track where it's like I can't really apply it to anywhere else. Let me go to CCP now, and then I can transfer there. And I'm glad it happened. The procrastination part is a bad part, but it got me to where I am now, and I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, some people tend to, when they think of CCP, they think of it, it's my last choice. Right. But in reality, for many, many people who grow up in the inner city, CCP could be your best choice.
Absolutely.
Because you could wind up in an institution where they don't understand, and there's no services for you.
Right.
I mean, think about it. Yes. I mean, it's a lonely place if you're like a little person running around in a big institution.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So even for our students who go on to different institutions, once they leave here, like they want to create a CME at those particular
Yes.
institutions because they understand the value and how meaningful it was for them. And I get them all the time, boss man, how can we create a CME at that particular space? Which tells me like why our programs are so successful. But that's success for me when they want to go out and continue to build communities wherever they go. That's what this is supposed to be about, right? Us uplifting each other and taking us to our rightful places. So
Because in a normal day, we're taught that it's not okay to conversate with the exact people who look like us, or college is not for us. And when you have a organization that's geared towards making sure that you get through that process, it's warming enough that you want to give that process to other students who don't know it. And it's like, wow, who would ever imagine that we have people who are employed by this college who treat me like a brother?
right.
Because the guard was up when I first walked in. I'm on defense mechanism. My defense mechanism is, what are you doing? What is your agenda?
Right.
Or we're on defense. And what CME does is actually break down them stigmatizing stereotypes that we have amongst our own brothers. And when it breaks it down, it allows us to manifest and grow every interaction that we have. And the more we get to learn what CME is doing, and the more trust that we put into it, the more we're able to open up. So that I can tell people who started CME at as early as they started it, it's not the same once they complete.
Once they're in there,
Absolutely.
Well, one would hope that that's what happens in college.
Right.
That we do know people who went all through college and they're still as ignorant and stupid.
Yeah,
but they have a degree now.
Not more so, right?
They just happen to have a degree. So
Right.
if you've been able to make that transition
Yes.
and move and get knowledge and learn from it, you're a Harvard graduate as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Because that's the whole issue, really, is to get something from that.
Because one of the things that we do as part of our summer program is so we have an orientation, and one of the first things I tell them is that I care about them. First, when they hear it, you could just see it's like this quizzical look, like I don't understand what you mean. Particularly someone, as administrator, telling another student that I care about you, right? And because I care about you, I'm going to do certain things. This program is designed because we care about you, right? And so we pour into them that, and so to the point where now they begin to believe that this is what care actually looks like, particularly, right? And it's more important for me as another man to tell another male that I care about them, and it's okay for me to do that, right? So that we could kind of build down those kind of walls. And so a lot of our men in the program, we were talking earlier about, not being successful in the classrooms, is because of some of that masculinity and that pride. Like, I'm not going to talk to nobody. I'm going to handle it.
When I did, I used to get hurt.
I get
and
right,
people
exactly.
messed with me. And
Exactly.
all
So I'm not,
kinds of things happened.
so I'm not going to do that, right? And so for me, particularly, it was like, this is what care looks like. And I'm trying to be as consistent as possible in that. When you walk in the door, I'm going to affirm you. They already know we grip each other up because you're here and I respect you. But more importantly is for them to understand that, okay, it's okay to be vulnerable. Too many of our men suffer in silence. Right? Because of the pride, because of their masculinity, and they're hurting. And because they've been let down by particularly men who may look like me or look like you. Another man saying, okay, I care about you. Yeah, all right. Okay. Yeah, I've heard this before. What are you going to do or say to be indifferent than what that other person did?
Sure.
And so for me, it's about being consistent, but also patient, right? So I know that whatever some of the frustration and the anger or the shame that they feel has nothing necessarily to do about me, so I don't take it personal, right? So they can lash out, and I'm like, you done? Okay, so now let us talk, right? But they need to understand that what the transition could look like, when you talk about changing the narrative, not only for a program, but also for a relationship between another man and another man.
Yeah, and there's also there's something to be said, and I could talk about my own experience for a moment. There's something to be said about talking to your people about your thing. You know what I mean? Like it's like they understand me. They're immigrant. They're this. They're that.
Right.
And even though it might come across odd to somebody else, it doesn't come across.
Right.
It's a kind of a almost a way in which you build resilience
Yes.
and become, involved. And if you set it to maybe somebody else that is not from your
Right.
cultural experience, they might interpret it as negative, when in reality what you're doing is you're just talking your talk to your people.
Right, right.
Am I right? You think?
It's creating a space, right? And so
Yeah.
that we can have an opportunity to talk about issues that affect us in
Yes.
ways, in meaningful ways, right? So that we can be as honest, right? We don't have to, be concerned about who's in the room. We can just talk about issues that really affect us. And so on a monthly basis, we have a S3 series, or it's a mentoring series, but it's really an opportunity for us to bring in different business people and mentors across the city, and we talk about issues that affect particularly men of color, right? So we talk
Yes.
about masculinity, we talk about pride, how we wear the mask, about asking for help and assistance, and what is so powerful about it is that it's not a panel, right? We don't get up in front and have them talk.
Right.
If there's a circle for a reason, and we're talking, right, and being honest, and you can just see kind of this
I
kind
think
of
that's very powerful stuff.
intergenerational
I really
support.
do. I really do.
And so give them that kind of space to do that. But also, as part of my job too, is that as I'm working for them, I recognize that, particularly for the institution, that students in our program are just not CME students. They're CCP students, right?
Right.
And so having those same conversations that the students let me know the issues that they're having, I'm bringing that to the faculty, I'm bringing that to the
That's right,
administration,
yeah.
right? Because they need to understand that those particular issues, those microaggressions or hidden biases,
The struggles,
those
or whatever,
struggles,
yeah.
right? Those particular things directly impact our students. And so that we're not forcing the students to adapt to us, we need to adapt to their particular needs and concerns. And so this is why this particular work, so they know, come talk to me. And my responsibility is not, it just sits here, that I now have an obligation to go tell those that can make different decisions here on campus, treat people differently, to hold them accountable for it as well.
Yeah. It's almost a kind of even sometimes when I meet with the recovery community people on my side of the equation, is I almost have to say, well, you can't really talk that way to a lot of other people.
Yeah.
You could talk that way to me.
Most of the time, yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
You can't be cursing the people down.
Right.
You can't be,
Yes.
there are intellectual ways in which you can knock them down.
Yes.
But that culture you have to learn more of.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
otherwise what happens is that when you leave, they say, man, that guy was really crazy, wasn't he? They don't hear your message.
Right, exactly.
And
Make
you
it
want
sauce.
people to hear your message,
Right.
don't you think? I
Absolutely,
think
absolutely.
Well, it's also for me to know that I have kind of like a lawyer as a college student to learn the language, how to be effective, building that bridge, but also connecting that gap. And I know that that's what Mr. Perkins is going to do when I may step into a situation as previous student government president, not understanding the holistic picture, but also maybe as a young person in recovery, maybe approaching it a little differently.
Yes, I think it's important.
It is
On
important.
on a different aspect of how it works. So not only does he bridge that gap, but he also teaches me the language to speak in
Yeah.
order to navigate amongst
well, that's
professional
important.
people.
That's really
you know?
important stuff.
But to Mike's credit, though, even that if I'm providing him that information, he's still speaking his words. Like, it's not me
That's right.
saying,
Yeah.
Mike, this is
Sure,
what you
yeah.
should say. It's Mike, this is in order to change the game, you got to know the game, right?
Yeah.
And so give him that permission, give him that information, so then he can come and speak to his voice. I don't want my voice to be his voice, right?
Yeah.
It's important for them to recognize that. And so for me, and I had to learn this lesson very early on, is whether or not I want to be right or do right.
Right. Yeah, good thought.
And
Yeah.
exactly. And so my position may be the right position, right, in terms of, but I need to be able to go through it in a particular way to get what needs to get done. And so trying to give that same kind of lessons learned from my perspective, share those with my students, and you see them, and after they're like, okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, I've often had meetings with people in recovery and say, you can talk to me like that, but you can't go out there because they're not going to listen to you. I listen to you,
Right.
but they're not going to hear it. They're
Yes,
going to
right,
hear all the static.
Oh, exactly.
Because, irrespective of how you want to look at it, there's a tremendous amount of stigma around both of these areas,
absolutely.
both the
Very
recovery
touchy.
and people of color, et cetera.
Right.
And that stigma and that negative kind of attitude is going to stay with people.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, the only way you're going to influence this is over a generation or two. You're not going to. You might be able to influence a person, but that person already seemed to be wanting to hear it.
Yes,
You
right. They have to be
know,
receptive to it.
Yeah, they have to be
Absolutely.
receptive. And
But
there's-
also on the flip side, that is very traumatizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To know that, you know, you have great intention, you want to be successful, especially at this level, and to know that them stigmas and the barriers exist, it's very, very disheartening to be able to want to jump into education per se, at a level to say, I need this. Can you give this to me? And it's not given because of the stereotypical biases, you know.
Right.
So to be able to learn how to navigate, all of what CME does is teach us not just to trust, but how to speak the language to navigate on how to be successful.
and to
you
also
know?
realize when not to speak a certain, because there's some really crazy. I mean, I know I'm going to hear this, you know, when they watch the show. But, there's faculty that you really would like to take out the back room and crack them in the head because they say really crazy stuff to students, and they don't even know they're being prejudicial when they say it.
Yes.
And that's another thing about the program. Like they teach you the language and they put you in the right rooms, but they put you in the right rooms with the right people.
Yeah.
So I know if I need counseling help, I know to go to this person instead of those people
Right.
Yeah.
and get whatever I need.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we often, I mean, we often say, well, I don't know if you should, I mean, I know they're not going to want to hear this story. I don't know if you want to take that faculty member because he's not real, like, kind to us. Meaning recovery.
Yes, yes, yes.
Or go there and don't talk
Right.
about your recovery because there's still, the
Absolutely.
faculty, 300-400, I don't know how many there are in this place now, but they're a microcosm of what's out there
In the
in
largest
the
society.
culture,
Yes.
There's some really nice people,
Right.
and then there's a couple evil people, and you gotta my son came here for a couple courses, and I reviewed with him every teacher he took. I said, well,
Right.
no,
Absolutely.
go over there and take this one.
Absolutely.
And I hate to say that, but it's the
It's true.
reality that we deal with every day.
And
It's
this is
true.
what education has become, though. And what I've learned is that, education has become the forefront of a business. And for that ideology to be adopted, you're going to have business mindsets, business interactions, when in reality, this is our life, our future
Absolutely.
as
Exactly.
African American and Hispanic American males in society today. And we
Right.
can see where it goes with the neighborhoods we live in and just how, poverty has, taken the forefront of what, what we deal with. But
Definitely,
education should not be
Right.
this hard.
Well, I don't think it'll ever get purified to where it'll be, just a whole new space to live in, because it represents the culture that we are
Exactly,
in,
right,
so to
right.
speak. But we can make it better, and we
Yes.
are. I mean,
Yeah, we
I think
are.
what you're doing and what I'm doing, they help.
We
They're
are,
very
and
helpful
I'm
things.
so empowered by the students, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't realize how much they always say that how much how we pour into them, but it's how they pour into us. Because I look at their resolve, right, and the issues that our students are dealing with on a daily basis. And I just hate when on campus and they would do stuff about grit. Like, don't say our students don't have grit. Our students have phenomenal grit, right? And then I wish us as an institution, if we had the same amount of grit as these students have, this would be a different type of institution with different type of outcomes.
Yeah.
And so for me, they help to build my resolve every day when they're coming in, and I see how hard they're fighting, dealing with everything I have to do before they even walk on campus, right? What they're doing, and that they're still here, which is telling me a lot about what they want. But it's more important for us to be just as resolved, right? And resolute in terms of, no, if they're going to fight to get here, I'm going to fight that even harder.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to have those uncomfortable conversations with people,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Because it's about pushing past that discomfort. Because at the end of the day, it's not about me, it's not about them, it's about these students here. And when if we really say we're student-centered, that's what being student-centered looks like.
Yeah.
And just to build on that, I came to college because my drug and alcohol counselor pushed me to come down here and sign up. And I was actually past the deadline to sign up and register, and one of the financial aid persons actually seen the way I was interacting and didn't even know me, and actually pushed past the deadline for me to register. And from that point on, the relationship building started and the understanding started. And once it started to work, every step of the way has given me more courage to want to continuously come back, and to know that it's working, and to have to learn courage. It takes a toll to say, you know, what I have I must give away, because what was given to me, it was given to me, and to know that it doesn't work for most, it's disheartening.
It is.
You know?
It is.
How does this resonate with you in this kind of discussion?
Definitely. I feel like the program it gives you a home away from home type of feel. So like I can't walk through the campus and not see people that I don't know.
Sure.
So like I have to stop. Oh, how are you? Hey, what's up? What's going on? What's going on? And even from students onto faculty, I walk in the building like, hey, how are you? Good morning. And I not just being cordial and talking to people, but I know these people because I've been in events with them, and I've had conversations with them when I needed help and stuff like that.
Yeah, it sounds like it is kind of like a second home. Sometimes it's their primary home. Some people sleep, you know.
Trust me.
We've seen people who have slept on the premises
because
at
it's
times.
necessary, right? And so those are kind of, when we talk about like the grit, right, and some of the issues that students are dealing with, the fact that they're still here, still trying to navigate this particular space is mind-boggling in certain places. So we have to be much more intentional. And when I say care, so we can have a situation where I remember having a student, and we did a panel, and this is one actually our stronger students, and he talked about just his head being down because he had a headache. The professor didn't approach the situation as I would have liked the professor to deal with the situation, because it wasn't that the student was disengaged, because he was hungry. Right, and had been hungry, and it's not just I'm not hungry for an hour or so because I haven't eaten.
And it wasn't hunger for knowledge.
Knowledge, right? Exactly. You know what I mean, right?
Basic food.
Exactly. And so for us to be able to not just to make these kind of false assumptions or our preconceived notions of who our students are, right? To be able to ask, really care about them. Are you okay, right? Because I know the student. We were able to engage in that particular way. That's how I found out, by just asking the student, are you okay, right? And based on that interaction, it kind of changed, so we'll be able to give them access to food and those particular things. But what often happens, and I hear from students all the time, is that this kind of perception about who they are, right? And if they're not engaged in the classroom, it's because they don't care about education, right? If they don't return to a classroom, it's not because the student or faculty or the administrator or someone that worked in one of the offices didn't treat them appropriately, and that's why they decided not to come back, right? It's always about what the student did, right? But for me, it's about, no, I'm going to hold us accountable as an institution, because I strongly believe in the potential of our students. But if we don't do things differently, we're going to see the same outcomes. And you know the definition of insanity, right?
Right.
So
Keep
it's
doing
really
the same
about
things
me.
over and over.
Exactly. So
Results.
as Hussein was mentioning before, when he walked into the program, hood on, he was hiding from himself, and didn't necessarily realize that, right? But it's more about, I care about you, and this is what care about looks like. I see you, I want to let you know that I see you, and what that means. So I'm going to provide you with the opportunity so that you could begin to see yourself in different spaces. He's now a peer coach,
counselor,
a peer coach, right? Within a year, you saw the transformation. And that's only because I care about him, and this is what care looks like. And so if I can do it, I believe in this institution, and I believe in that other people can have the same capacity that I have.
Well,
and I'm not gonna
modeling
stop anyone
behavior is
else
a
in that.
real important learning process. So he picks it up from you, and you pick it up from him. And actually, although we talk about the two students here,
Right.
but the reality is we learn a lot from the
absolutely.
experience too, in the sense of how we might approach it one way or approach it another way,
Absolutely.
that kind of thing.
And you have to be flexible, because
Yeah.
they have different issues, have different approaches, and I have to be flexible and adaptable to all those particular things. Another thing, I need to be there to provide support, but also let them know, provide support not always in a way that they want it, but in ways that they need it. But that doesn't happen unless we build a rapport and build a trust, and so they can trust me and be a little more vulnerable. Like, okay, well, if Bossman said it, then I know where he's coming from, so I'm maybe more willing to do that, right? Provide them with information and let them take off with it.
And then it's a trickle down effect of information. So like he can provide Michael with information, and Michael can tell me that
Oh,
information.
so it becomes a shared.
Exactly.
Well, they actually have a shared space, which is kind of like a clubhouse
Yes.
situation.
Clubhouses
where
are important.
students, especially on campus,
Yeah.
especially
Yes.
where we walk into a situation where we have tutors that's in the program that tutor the students regularly with math and English. And you walk into a situation, you walk into students get tutored, you walk into a conversation about chess, they're filling CME is filling the void, all of what my father never felt because he was never there. So when it comes down to painting that picture of a father image, navigating to that point, wow, like the poverty rate and what's going on in Philadelphia today, whether it's children being raised in single parent households to food deserts to being hungry to just even the teen murder rate. It's to know that that's what we have to face and come on the campus and face it as well, face that same type of mentality because there aren't really no support services for students, to know that there's one big support clubhouse. It's like, why wouldn't I want to gravitate towards that?
And it's like, it's one thing to talk about the rates or statistics, but there are students in the program that are in the neighborhoods, and they don't see the statistics. They see the faces of the people that are doing the things, or the people that are going through the things, and they have a place to come to away from home.
And it's a total opposite. It's like I'm walking home from school, and I have to worry about the harmful things that are happening in my community. And I come to school and I see the same people, and it's a totally different atmosphere. It's like, wow, I
It's
can't.
interesting that you say that because I grew up in North Philadelphia, 22nd in Indiana, and I remember I was always fearful on the street because there were all kind of gangs,
Sure.
There was Westmoreland W's and there was all kind of people, Judson Street Gang, and you turn a corner and the next thing you know you got to run because they're going to beat you up or do something to you. But when I went to LaSalle, which is where I did my undergraduate work, when I entered that college, any of them, or community college or LaSalle, is that nobody was going to bother me. It was like they were just interested in me getting an education. And if I walked from one building to another building, I didn't have to worry about going around a corner.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's a comforting thought.
It is, because we make it known too in the program, right? It's that you could be from every possible zip code here in the city, right? But when you come here, you're a part of the CME family, right? And this is their brotherhood, and this is how they treat each other. So I don't care where you come from. When you come here, this is the expectation, like that we are brothers, and this is what we look like, and we to take care of each other, regardless of where you're coming from.
That expectation actually allowed me to obtain my first suit. There was a collaboration with a nonprofit organization downtown, which CME had a collaboration with. It's called Men's Fit, where the peer coaches allowed us to. We signed up and we actually went downtown, and they actually have a display of maybe 10 to 12 racks of suits, dress clothes, and I actually obtained my first suit through CME, and now I rather buy dress pants and shoes than sneakers and a hoodie, and the whole transformation of that confidence to know that you are presentable and can be presentable in any room, and then understand the language too. It's a double win, and all the way around the board. So
it helped the program in a sense. It helps take away all of your barriers. So you have an interview coming up. You have a suit. You already know you have a suit. And if you don't have a suit, you know who to talk to and where they're gonna send you. You're hungry, you can come in here. We have snack packs, and then
we have
if we
food
don't
bag
have
now
some,
and all that.
so you don't have any excuse not to
be successful.
be successful here at the school while you're in this program, and we hold you accountable to it. So it's not just hugs and kisses and putting you in the cradle. It's, oh, how was that test? Or did you study for it? Why didn't you study for it? And then, okay, this is what we're going to do for the next test. So in the next test, you're prepared and you're ready.
Yeah, I often wonder, I don't think that this experience that we're talking about happens at a lot of colleges. I mean, I might be wrong. I mean, I don't work at a lot of places.
No.
I mean, I don't even want to mention them because God knows what feedback I'll get.
Sure.
But I've been, and I don't see this kind of collective imagination, if you want to use that word, going on. I mean, it's just, you come in, you do your class, and you leave.
Right.
And if you happen to run into people of your background or experiences, it's accidental.
Right,
It's
right.
nothing planned.
Exactly.
Don't you think? I mean, that's the way it was
is.
when I was at school. Now,
And I
that was
think-
quite a few years ago.
And I think just because you provide a service, that immediately assumes that people are going to access it, right? But there's certain things that you have to do that make people feel comfortable enough to access those particular services. So they may have a similar service at another institution, but if they're not really creating a culture where students can actually feel comfortable in accessing that information, feeling safe, feeling affirmed, not judgmental, then the program it just exists, right? And I think what we've tried to do is, one, again, this is what care looks like in practice, right?
Yes.
And so this is not just a service, right? We're building a family because this is this is the best structure for most of our students in order for them to thrive. So it's not about me; it's about what they need. And so I'm adapting that to what they need, rather than just for a checkbox. Yes, we provide this service to African American men, or we provide this service to this particular population. It takes much more than that in order to build what we're trying to build, and then they can build those particular things in their own respective communities. Also, when they go to another institution, they can understand what a program like this can look like in order to be successful, particularly for people who look like them.
And then, like, I have friends that go to other colleges, and, like, I'll explain the program to them. So I'm like, yeah, I've been to New York this many times and DC for this, and I've been to this many colleges I would have never went to on my own. And then they're like, well, how much is the program? I'm like, oh no, it's free. Like, it's like, well, why don't we have that at my school? I'm like, I can't tell you. Like, it's just,
Right.
I've never seen anything like it. And then the people I know that have came from this school and going to other schools, they still haven't seen anything like it.
And you know what's the irony of it, at least the experience that I've had, is that when they leave us, they can always come back and visit
they always
us.
come back.
They
Yeah.
always come
They
back.
always come back.
They come
They
say, hello,
always-
what are you doing?
they
Like, it's
always come
almost
back.
like, I really miss this place.
Right,
I mean,
right.
that's the impression.
But they miss the community. They miss that
Yeah, it's a
support,
kind
right?
of
And that's what we try
It
to
really
provide
accents
for
the community and community college.
Exactly.
when you think
And,
about it.
and for me,
Yeah.
it's in order for them to be successful, it's about building that community, right? Before we can talk about the academics, all the other stuff, if we don't build that sense of community,
Yeah.
right, and actually understand some of the issues our students are dealing with, and can be able to be, show empathy, and actually have some action as a result of that. Too often, some of these students before were coming to us, and we didn't have nowhere else to go send them to, right?
Yeah.
Which was hurtful for me. Like, okay, they coming to me in this kind of desperation, and I can't provide them with the service that they really need at that moment. And for some of the students, they use that as okay, see, college not for me. This kind of confirmation bias. I wasn't able to get the information that I needed in the time that I needed. See, this is not for me. And it's like, no, we have to look at this differently. But more importantly, we have to make sure that we have the services to actually in their need, not necessarily in our need, in our want. So
with it, part of that, and over the summer, I completed a community health worker program, and the program was geared towards trauma-informed care. And the moment we address the trauma is the moment that people get well. And the opposite was the medical model, which is just medication.
Yes.
And we patch you up and get you out. And part of what the culture of Mr. Perkins has created is a trauma-informed approach, and to address trauma in a way that he teaches to in a broader spectrum to create your own narrative. And the moment that he had put that picture in my mind to create my own narrative and control my narrative, to break down stigmatizing ideology, it was very empowering. So, all of what trauma-informed care stands for is what CME is doing to Black and brown men all across this campus.
Yes.
And to know that it's standing strong and thriving, it's amazing to be a part of something so epic.
I think the successful programs somehow been able to operationalize what are the basic components of a good counseling model.
Right.
Like they really do communicate warmth, and they are empathic as opposed to sympathetic.
Yes.
Sympathetic. and they're genuine.
Yes.
And if you get those three in combination,
Yes.
you have a healing relationship.
Absolutely. Right.
And when you feel that, you take, you just leap forward.
Sense of
So,
belonging.
Yes.
I don't have to stop you. I just have to move aside.
Exactly.
in reality. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's what really gets communicated. You say, well, I am someone.
Yes.
People do,
Yes.
people do care about me.
Exactly.
And I do have something to contribute.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's amazing.
Because you grew up, at least in my experience, I grew up
Right.
like this. You grow up saying, well, you don't have really much to say anyway, so
Right.
we don't care who wants to listen to you anyway. I'm not saying that they do that directly, say it that
Right.
way,
But the actions.
but
show
the way they ignore you, the way they don't pay attention, and you come to a place like this, and what you get is really the application
Of that.
of effective skill, the counseling.
Absolutely.
Especially
help.
it being black and brown. Especially it's not, a societal white inferiority thing, where we have to, look at the police in our communities, look at the people who own the properties in our communities as being as distant as we know them to be.
Right.
But it's a different feeling when a black man tells me something that I trust and I know that works in regards to a white man telling me something that I don't trust and from my experience doesn't work.
Right.
So to bridge that gap, it's like empathy is totally competent when sympathy, I don't want you to feel sorry for me.
Right.
I don't. I've dealt with that all my life. I want you to understand and have a solution
Yes.
to what works for you. And that's what you have. You have that solution, especially a split image in a tie and a suit. It's like, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Right.
make it look that good. Can I
Right,
make it
right.
look that good? And you have, you put that courage right into the student's lap. And it's amazing.
What I try to do really is remind them, right, that they're deserving to be cared about. They deserve to be loved, right? Some of them come in broken, not realize they've been broken, or come in emotionally, traumatized, don't even recognize that because this is my life, right? And so this has always been my life. I don't know anything
And
else.
why is it gonna change
Why is it
now?
going to change,
Yeah,
right? I don't
yeah,
know anything differently. And I think the harder job I have to do, and my staff have to do, is remind them that they're deserving of that love and to be cared about. And because they do, and have to remind them of it, and that we have to be consistent in that message, you see them begin to see themselves differently. And so they begin to take different chances, different opportunities. They walk different, they speak different, they live different, right? But that's only because
They even dress different.
They even dress different, right? Exactly, right? But it's really about, but it's really about, they have to, and it's sad that we have to come do that. That's a part of my job, right? To remind them that they're valuable. Right.
Yeah, I often think when I see them moving from one space to another, I often think that they're building like resilience, and
Yes,
they're becoming like transformative.
Oh, they are, yeah.
Their life is transforming into something else. They'll never be the same.
They will never be,
and
right,
that's
right.
really important. That's transformative,
It is.
as opposed to someone who says, "Well, I'm here. I got my degree, and I'm about the same old fool I was when I
Right,
entered as a
right.
freshman."
Sure.
But you could see it. The ones that are successful, really, they have this almost feeling that I can,
Yes.
and they're a different person.
They are a different person.
They transform.
It's a sense of recovery. It's a sense of knowing that, I wasn't going to be what, I thought I was going to be, and then recovering from that.
Yeah.
So getting the best of both the behavioral health spectrum, the recovery spectrum, to the wellness through, empathetic approach spectrum, the transformation is phenomenal. To know that we're not just seeing the results, but we're learning
Yeah.
through the curriculum how and why recovery is so important.
Right.
Because, I have no issue with telling people I was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and this is where I am now. Because of that transformation. We all in recovery from something.
Something, absolutely.
Just like
And
addiction.
also,
Yeah.
and also, I think which is important, and I'm sure the students and Derek will attest to this, is that when you make the transition, you don't lose your past. You just look at it differently.
Differently,
You don't
right.
really lose it. Like people say, well, I don't want to be identified with this. Or I don't want to be identified. No, you just put it in a different place,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
you realize that there were things that happened to you that made you who you are today.
Right. Right.
But you're moving forward.
Yes, right.
Don't you think?
Exactly. And you're not getting over anything, you're moving through it.
That's right.
And
yeah.
they're moving
Does that
through
make
it.
sense
Yeah.
to you?
Yeah, I like the empathetic approach, and then the recovery part about it, because you can't, like, I can't look at Michael Luna and see what he's been through, so but he's open to talk about it, and then there are so many other people that can connect to that. So like, you can't look at me and see kid from West Philadelphia. I've seen the drugs in person that are in the movies. I've seen people be shot. I've seen people shoot people, and I've been around that environment. You can't look at me and tell that,
Right.
because of the steps I've gone up from, like, from being in this program and around the people I've been around and meeting the people that I've been introduced to.
Yeah, it is an interesting transition that people make, and the ones that are successful make that transition.
Yes.
They're,
Yes.
you know, the ones who aren't successful are still, like, you know, pissed off and angry and
And that, yeah, so and
anger, yeah.
right, and we know that everyone has a journey, and
Yeah.
for some it hits at a different point in time. They have that moment, you know, that wake up moment for them, and we understand that, right? And so our program is designed so that we have students who are not as successful as, you know, Hasim and Mike. So they might have to take a stopgap year, but they always know that they could come back, right? So I tell them, you know, our thing is, like, I'll leave the porch light on for you. So when you know things are happening, you always could come back, and there's not gonna see you any differently, treat you any differently, but you know that you dealing with what you're dealing with. When you are ready, we'll be ready, and that's all we have. That's all we can do.
yeah, well, we tend to look at life as like as though it's linear, but it
Right,
really
there's
isn't. It's
nothing in a
circular.
linear,
It
exactly.
actually goes in
Circular.
an eclipse more than it goes straight.
Right.
You
It's
know
never
what I
been
mean?
that way.
And even when you return, you're not returning to the same situation, even though you'll return.
Exactly, right.
You're returning to a different experience,
experience.
but not one that you reject.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
you can.
And even if you
can
fail,
appreciate it.
like,
yeah.
even if you fail, you're not going from here to zero. You're going from what you've learned so far
That's right.
with that failure, and then you're building up upon that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Because I talk about me being, you know, 5 steps behind, and then I'm already going back down. But you know, with the mental part of what the program brings, it brings you forward to whereas though if you take a couple steps back, you're still ahead with the knowledge and the information that most people want to charge you for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember having a conversation with Mike, and he's saying that, you know, I wish I was here. Right. If I had done things differently, you know, I would be in a different place. And I remind them, you are exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and if you concentrate too much on "I wish I were there," you'll
then you'll
never
always be
get
there.
where
Exactly.
you want to go.
Right. Exactly.
There's a lot of that too that goes on. Don't you
Exactly.
think?
Exactly. 'Cause I was having a conversation with another student, and he was similar situation, and you know, was telling about this kind of analogy of what happens when you run looking backwards. Right, and so if you're so concentrated on where you're going, you
Can't see what's
what's in front of you, right? But you're slowing down, you're losing the process. I just need you to stay forward. And he looked at me, he was like, okay, I need to stop looking back. Like, you are where you're supposed to be. So the only thing, you can't do anything about what happened yesterday. You only could do what happened right now and tomorrow. And so that's why I need you to place your energy and your focus. And that doesn't happen overnight, but you know, you can encourage them to do that.
Your statement is a great transition into where you all want to go in the future, because we have about maybe 4 or 5 minutes left, and I'm wondering what has this experience taught you, and where do you see yourself moving? You know, take a couple minutes each of you.
Okay. That is a question.
Or just change your major.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a business major.
Okay.
And I'm now pursuing a double major in doing business and Black studies.
Okay.
But I eventually went to get my MBA in business, and start up a bunch of different businesses on my own. But I feel like the main part about that is me having not only the courage, but the resources, and seeing the people who have done that themselves. So like we were talking about the S3 series, you're around a bunch of people who are, some of them they are workers and they are executives, and some of them they have their own businesses and vice versa. And so it's not just a blind look type of thing. So it's like you know where you want to go, and we're gonna help you get there. But then you see the people who've been where you're at and are where you're trying to go. So that's how the program has helped me and coached me into.
So you tend to have a more positive vision of where you're going, as opposed to maybe 5 years ago where maybe you didn't know where you were going. If you know what I mean.
A year ago. I didn't-
Oh, a year, okay. I was being kind and generous to you.
Yeah.
No, I think that's an important thing, because if you don't have a positive view of where your life's taking you, you'll always feel like inadequate, depressed. I don't know, you can use a lot of words for it. But the reality is if you see yourself going in a direction that's supportive and will get you to an independent
Yeah.
life, you know, like in the sense of your own income, your own profession. I mean,
That's important.
that's a major step forward
Yes.
in the sense of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You, I don't know.
Well, for me, as you know, I transitioned from a drug rehab to college. I didn't even think about college. I didn't even know. My counselor's like, go down there and sign up. You'll be good. And I'm like, nah, I'm all right. Went down, been down here, never got out. So I initially know I wanted to help people. It went from drug and alcohol counseling to not really understanding, but I have met great people when I first got down here that gave me the opportunity to understand what a general studies liberal arts degree can do, which I'm able to transfer to a four-year institution of my choice.
Yes.
And my credits are transferable.
Yes.
So I'm barking up the rim now of about to graduate with my associates in liberal studies
Yes.
and wanting to get a bachelor's in
And your recovery leadership.
and my recovery
Recovery
leadership
leadership, right, right,
certificate.
right.
And also wanting to get a bachelor's in psychology and either psychology or social work, and wanting to get a master's and a PhD in child psychology. The goal is to become a child psychologist and want to help children through therapeutic process rather than the psychiatry way, which is more of the pharmaceuticals. So all of what I'm learning, you know, and what Mr. Perkins is dealing with, especially when it comes down to systematic oppression, is dealing with the symptoms of what fatherless households partake in. So I think if I can teach children accountability and forgiveness at an early age, we can bypass the pharmaceuticals, which we can bypass the blame stage to why things don't work in my life, which
Right.
is my father's not there. So that's what the goal is.
Good. And that, you know, one of the reasons why I'm sure we both do what we do is that it's almost like we live through both of you. You know, our life gets prospered because we've influenced both of you, and I guess that's about the nicest way to end this thing. Kind of. So that's.
Thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I would like to thank you, my co-host Derek Perkins, and my two very special guests, Michael Luna and Hasim Clett. Good, I got it. For being here. I would also like to thank you, the viewers, for tuning in. You have been watching The Tapestry of Life on CCP TV, the award-winning educational channel of Community College of Philadelphia. I am Dr. Pascal Scholes, Professor of Behavioral Health and Human Services and Director of the Office of Collegiate Recovery. See you next time.